What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of our NFL DFS DraftKings Advice videos, this time for Week 17. It is not the last week of the season. The extended season gives us one more after that. So with a lot of teams in playoff contention, a lot of guys kind of playing, or I guess teams kind of playing for their playoff positioning specifically, we don't really need to worry this week about anyone benching players, which is awesome. Before we get into everything, I am your host, Justin Bales, joined by Matt and Ben. Dangerous Three. I've heard that from quite a few people refer to us as the Dangerous Three. But how are you guys doing today?
It's exciting. It's very exciting. I like to be called dangerous at top. Doing good, man. Yeah, I'm happy to be back with Ben on a podcast. I haven't done one with you. I feel like I did one with Bales a couple weeks ago, just the two of us. And yeah, man, happy to be here. It's been an awesome season. Just my wildest dreams, pretty much. And we got one more. I mean, probably two more really good weeks left as far as main slate stuff. So ready to crush this week.
How about you, Ben? You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We've had a really good last couple weeks here. And Matt said it. When did you? I think you said that literally Sunday night last week. Like we were celebrating like the big wins, and you're like 14 gamer next weekend. Like this is the type of slates that we can really, or just the people that pay attention in general can have success on. So yeah, I'm excited for this week.
Yeah, if you guys are watching on YouTube and you're actually watching, we do have our projections portal pulled up. This is premium. You guys are getting a freebie here. Keep in mind, recording this Thursday night, it will change come Sunday. So not everything that you see now is going to be what you're going to see on Sunday, which leads me into my next thing. You can purchase our core plays package on the site, dfskarma.com, and then obviously go to our core plays under the pricing tab. And that will get you access to our projections. It will get you all of our core plays. It'll get you our premium content, which is Ben's core play articles. We also have the final thoughts where you'll have our cash game. You'll have GPP plays, all that good stuff. And you will get into our premium Discord as well. If you don't want into the premium Discord, you can go to chatdfs.com. All of this stuff is listed in the description below, but chatdfs.com will get you into our free Discord where we would assume you'll eventually make the jump into the premium. That's just how a lot of it goes. We have a great premium chat. We have great free chat where we discuss kind of stuff all throughout the week. We would really like to see you guys there. But before we get into the position by position, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. You can turn on the notifications by clicking the little bell. That will get you all of the videos as soon as they're published. They get sent to you and you can watch them right there and then. And then you can comment anything that you want below, any questions you have about the slate, anything that's kind of going on, because obviously stuff kind of changes a little throughout the week. It seems like a lot of the COVID stuff has kind of died down a little bit at this point. I know we have the 5 days. There's the new rule that players have to sit out if they're asymptomatic. So a lot going on with that, but it doesn't seem like as many players are going to miss, especially later in the week, but that could always happen and that could potentially change the slate. So another reason to be in our Discord, but you can ask any questions in the comments below and we will be in throughout the week to answer them to the best of our abilities. I think now is the perfect time to jump into quarterback though. Matt, let's start with you. What are you looking at for quarterback this week?
Yeah, I think probably the most popular play of the week is going to be Trey Lance, assuming Garoppolo doesn't play. We're getting some classic Kyle Shanahan, coach speak, where he's basically lying, saying that, oh yeah, he's even got Kittle in on it, saying that on a podcast, saying that, yeah, we all expect Jimmy G to suit up, but all he's done is had 2 straight DNPs this week to start the week of practice. And every doctor on kind of the Twitter doctor space in the fantasy sports, especially Dr. Chow, who's like incredibly accurate. He worked for, I believe, the Chargers for a long time as a team doc. They're all saying like, listen, this is a 5 to 6 week, situation that he's dealing with that torn ligament in his with his thumb on a throwing hand. So it's looking more and more likely that Trey Lance is going to play, and obviously we know that he's got incredible upside through his legs. That's how you beat the Texans, is on the ground. So of course they could be featuring one of their main running backs. There's no question. But look, they want to see what they have. Excuse me, out of Trey Lance, and if they're going to make a playoff run, boy, there's nothing better than a matchup with the Houston Texans to kind of get him acclimated with the offense and get going. So I think he's going to be the most popular. I think he's totally fine in GPPs. I mean, I do a lot more high dollar, smaller field, 1,000 or less type entrance GPPs, and there's nothing wrong with just playing the chalk at quarterback and just getting different with the rest of your lineup, because in this case at 4,800 you can play whatever you want practically. So that's there. My only other play that I'm really, really excited about is Dak Prescott. I almost wish he didn't just completely explode in prime time and, as a team put up like 50 points on the football team. But I think that Arizona is a much better matchup than a lot of people think. Their pressure rate has been falling throughout the year after just destroying Taylor Lewan early on. I think week 1, no one likes Taylor Lewan. He's a terrible person. But if you look at Arizona as a squad, the last 3 weeks, man, they're giving up the second highest completion percentage as a defense. They're giving up the highest passer rating as a team over the last 3 weeks. Everything's trending badly. You get Dak at home with Tyron Smith coming back. So if there's any, fears of any sort of pressure coming, well, now their best pass blocker by far is suiting up this week. It's almost a guarantee that it looks like he's going to play. So all they did is get more healthy after just looking really, really strong. So all the metrics check out, all the nice metrics in Dak's favor. I'm really excited about that big, home favorite, big team total. You could look at Stafford against a nut matchup, in Baltimore, of course. He burned me last week. I had like 60% in the Burrow last week, which was, great. But 40% Stafford was bad. So anyways, I'm basically looking at Trey and Dak. Ben, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I think you covered Trey Lance well. I think he's going to project really well. They have a high team total. It's not like they're getting any. I know they're playing the Texans, but they're not really getting any discount from Vegas. I mean, 28-point team total, and he's just too cheap for the upside. Like, I don't think he's going to run it quite as much as he did. That one game he had 16 attempts. Like, I don't really think you can bank on him getting that many again. But it's clear like he's going to run the ball, and San Fran wants to run the ball. So I do think he's arguably the top option. I agree. I think he's playable in tournaments. So he's going to be strongly in consideration for me. I do like Dak, but I had him third, at least in my early rankings, behind Josh Allen. I know he's 8K, but he's at home. The Bills need to win. And the Bills are one of the teams, like, we're comfortable playing them if it's a big spread. Like, they really don't let up. So I'm not as worried about the 14.5 spread. If you look at pressure percentage for team, Atlanta dead last, 16.5%. They cannot get pressure on the quarterback. We've taken quarterbacks really against them all season. I think it's a really good spot at home for Josh Allen, and we know he has one of the highest ceilings on the slate every time he plays. So he's actually, I think for my main team, it's going to come down to him versus Trey Lance and kind of making that decision, and then I'll probably just play the other one in my main tournament team. And then Dak is definitely right there as my third favorite. I agree with Stafford. I don't think anyone's playing Stafford.
No.
After what he's done the last 2 weeks. Baltimore's actually given up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks now after the last few weeks are just so bad. So I do think it's a good spot for him, and it's a good spot for tournaments. He's 7,100. No one is going to play him. And then the other guy, I was kind of debating if I wanted to mention anyone else, but I do think you can go back to Burrow. 6,900, obviously highest over under on the slate. I think it's still a good matchup. KC is bottom 6 or 7 in fantasy points led to quarterbacks, and they've been passing the ball more and more each week, it feels like. So I am comfortable going back to him, but I think really Trey Lance or Josh Allen is what it comes down to for me.
What's interesting, Ben, about the Burrow call, because it should be talked about. I mean, they're facing KC, who obviously forces a ton of pass attempts and pass play percentage and everything like that. Obviously, it threw for 500 plus yards, looked incredible last week. Got all the weapons you'd ever want. But before the Baltimore game, the previous 6 games, he had 6 touchdowns, right? So 6 passing touchdowns in 6 games. He was the least blitzed quarterback in the league for that stretch after seeing how much he tore up Baltimore the first time, right? Baltimore, a top blitzing team. All of his metrics are just destroying against the blitz. So then, the rest of the league kind of understands they don't blitz him at all. He only throws, 1 touchdown per game, and then Baltimore comes in. That was crazy. Harbaugh literally talked shit about Burrow the night before.
I know.
Like, are you dumb, dude? Like, just pissed off the entire team. Like, they basically asked him. For those who don't know, they asked him, like, look, are you going to do kind of what you did with the Aaron Rodgers? You're going to do some bracket coverage. You're going to put 2 high safeties. He said, no, listen, basically said Joe Burrow's not Aaron Rodgers, which is true. But my God, so he was stubborn. They blitzed him, and he just lost his mind and 5, and they were still throwing it when they're up like a ton.
Yeah, and I'm not. Obviously, we're not here to talk about last week, but obviously, I played him in my main team, and you were heavy on him. Like, I was shocked how low owned he was because by the time we got to the weekend, like, he was projecting so well, and he was so cheap. I mean, he was under $6K.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was shocked he was so low owned.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I guess whatever. I mean, forward-looking show, but I mean, I literally stacked him with Uzoma and Chase, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like the 2 guys touchdown equity, literally, and of course, the GOAT Ben plays Higgins. I don't know if he had any, what's his name,
Tyler Boyd,
but I mean, my God,
I almost had both of them. I was strongly debating it, but no. I ran pure with Higgins, so I'm not going to complain.
I built the hedge line with Higgins and Boyd, and then I didn't play it, so that's cool. Anyways, yeah, so I think we got to look at if KC is going to, because they're a big time blitzing team too. To be fair, I mean they blitzed top 10 rate, and they certainly kept a blitz on against Dak when they played them. They sent everyone after Herbert as well. So I mean they're a team that plays a lot of man coverage, that loves to blitz. That certainly could be a good opportunity for Burrow again. And you're right. I don't think people are really playing him, which is like, maybe this industry is getting too sharp, right? And I mean, in this case, I say that kind of, tongue in cheek, like maybe you should probably, still play him, right? I mean, so we'll see. I mean, I got to look at that a little bit closer, but yeah, I think Burrow should at least be mentioned.
Yeah, you guys nailed it. I don't think that there's anyone else that I really want to talk about too much. The guy that I was going to outline, because I kind of thought that I would know where you guys were going, and you did go basically where I was expecting. I was going to say Matthew Stafford, but both of you really touched on him too. The matchup is just too good. The entire season, I've basically been taking quarterbacks against Baltimore. They just aren't good in the secondary right now. They're getting healthier. I'm just not afraid of who they have at the moment. I feel like every time we come on this podcast, I'm like, yeah, you have this really chalky receiver in a good passing offense, generally Cooper Kupp. And then you have his quarterback who's just getting no ownership. And I did that a couple weeks ago with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. That's kind of when Adams flopped a little bit, but Rodgers went off in that game. So it just doesn't make that much sense. If Cooper Kupp is such a good play, which when we get to receiver, we're going to talk about how he is and how he's arguably the best play on the entire slate, at least in my opinion. His quarterback has to generally at least be decent. Last week, we saw that Kupp can obviously play extremely well without Stafford going off. But realistically, it just doesn't happen all that much, especially when you have such a good matchup against a team like Baltimore. But the only other quarterback that I guess I would say, and it feels kind of gross because I doubt that I end up going there. It's just kind of a price tag thing. Ryan Tannehill's 5,900. Really cheap, gets a solid matchup against Miami. I'm not overly scared of that. They're not playing as poorly as they were earlier in the season. So it's a little bit tougher of a matchup than, kind of mid-season when they were going through that whole losing streak and stuff. But I do think that Tannehill is at least viable. And I know that all of his pass catchers, basically, Westbrook, Julio, both out. But that's going to make them force feed A.J. Brown. And quite frankly, I want them throwing the ball to A.J. Brown regardless of whether Westbrook is open. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's at least upside for the 5.9 price tag in this particular matchup. I would have Tannehill well below in a tier of the guys that have already been mentioned. So probably more of a bigger GPP type thing. And if you're running multiple lineups, but I do think that at least he can be mentioned. Do either of you guys even slightly like Tannehill, or are we just kind of off of him?
I mean, you got to see if Julio comes back, if Westbrook comes back. I mean, with the COVID rule change, I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. I think probably not. Because just if my God, Dak for 800 more, it's like figure it out probably. Mm-hmm. And in general, if you're playing the quarterback and a weapon, you want all the weapons strong. So if I play Dak and CeeDee Lamb, I'm not hating the world. if Amari goes 8 for 102, because I'm getting the production through Dak. So I think I would like AJ Brown more as a one-off in this scenario, and we can talk about him when we get to wide receivers. But yeah, I'd probably just keep it to AJ Brown there.
Yeah, if I was playing someone cheap that's not Lance, I think I would play Huntley as long as he's starting at 5,600. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, very quickly before we move to running back, I don't think we need to take more than legit 30 seconds on this. But on, I believe it was ESPN earlier, crazy that they're still doing this kind of thing. They asked the question, over the next 5 years, would you rather have Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow? And obviously had the argument going back and forth. And I just thought to myself, what an insane question that is. And that one person would go on national TV arguing for Joe Burrow in that situation.
I mean, that's insane. Yeah, that's just, wow. Yikes.
I feel like that's where we're at with ESPN at this point. But we can move along to running back. There are a few options that I actually think are relatively sneaky. I'm interested to know kind of what you guys are thinking at this position. So, Ben, we'll start with you. Who are you looking at for running back this week?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I might end up with Lance on my main team is 100% Jonathan Taylor is a must play for me this week. Vegas is really banged up at linebacker. And have been for the last few weeks. They've actually now allowed the 7th most fantasy points to running backs on the season. They've allowed the 7th most catches to running backs on the season. I think he's just going to end up being a must play for me as we get to the weekend. So that might be what makes me go with Lance at quarterback for my main team. Outside, I'm not going to spend too much time talking on him though, because it's kind of obvious. But outside of him, you have Ronald Jones at 6,300, David Montgomery at 6,500, and then Sony Michel at 5,800. I think all those guys can be used in all formats. I was all day I've been kind of trying to decide like which of those that I prefer. I actually, I don't know. I think Sony might be my favorite just because he's the cheapest at the moment. Like I can't believe we're at this point, but he hasn't looked bad. Like, I don't know. He's actually like not looked bad. It's actually amazing, but he's the cheapest. Obviously a good team total, and they've been committed to giving the ball, and it's only going to get better, with Henderson. So he might be my favorite, but I think all those guys are viable in all formats.
Interesting. Wow, we're like way off. You and I, Ben, as far as running back, which is really different for us, I think, lately.
I'm intrigued here because I feel like I'm similar with Ben here. I want to know where Matt's going.
Wow, nowhere near that. That's interesting. I mean, I think that Jonathan Taylor with the second or third string quarterback likely to play, I'm not incredibly bullish on the offense as a whole. It hasn't hurt the total too bad. The total's still sitting at 25.5. But if you get Ellinger or whatever his name is in there, I'm not loving the offense. First and foremost, as we saw last week, Jonathan Taylor get 27 carries. He just hyper focused it on stopping the run, and yeah, he got 100 yards, but it was empty. I mean, there's 0 catches, 0 touchdowns in the game. Of course, it's probably at this point more like, which is crazy. It's more likely that he gets in the box than not. But that's a big tag to pay. And the matchup's good, certainly good. Nassib just got put on the COVID list today. He's one of their good DNs. So I'm okay with it. Who was the other one? This is bad. I already forget. Who else did you mention? I know I didn't. Oh, you mentioned Sony. Yeah. So Sony, man. So I've been staring him down, like, because the matchup's bad. Like, Baltimore has created the most negative yard carries in the league as a defense. They've allowed, or they've also created the most carries for just 5 yards or less. I mean, they're a pass funnel, 30th DVOA pass. Top 5, top 6 for DVOA versus the run. Rams want to sling it. If you give them a reason to sling it, they're going to absolutely take that reason. Obviously, there's just third and fourth stringers in the entire secondary. Sony's actually been pretty good. If you watch him, yeah, no question. Could he fall in the end zone? Yeah, he could. He can get some catches too. I get it. I'm not as against it as I am Taylor, just from a price standpoint, but I'm not really there just because I like a few other plays more. So who I like, I'll start with Monty. I mean, he might be one of the top owned running backs on the week, maybe the top owned. And, the last 3 weeks with, backup quarterbacks playing for the Giants, teams called a run play against the Giants at a 48.5% clip, which is the highest. And if that were to be the clip for the whole season, that'd be the highest. I mean, more than even the Jets. So they're trending as an absolute just put the ball in the belly, against this any running back against this team. And you got Chicago playing at home in the snow, cold weather, big favorites, with kind of a nasty quarterback situation. I think Monty has continued to get fed 20 plus touches in a really good spot. I certainly like, actually, actually like, and this is going to get Bales extremely excited. I like Singletary this week.
Let's go.
Dude, I mean, he's taken like 90+% of the running back touches 3 straight weeks. The production's been there to follow. Falcons are a great matchup. They get to play also at home in the snow and the wind in Buffalo against a dome team who's just struggling, and massive home team total. It's hard to kind of pick the passing options in the team like Buffalo with so many weapons that they have, and some of them extremely expensive like Diggs. So I can just get the knock on wood, kind of bell cow running back, at least lately, on a great team with a huge team total, home favorite in the cold against a dome team. It's 3 straight weeks with 15 DraftKings points, multiple touchdowns, 5 catches last week, 6 catches 2 weeks before that. If the wind's high, maybe they do a few more dump offs, So I think that Singletary, I mean, he's been closing out games too, man. They're kind of oscillating between Moss and Breida and kind of, doing healthy scratches on the other one, and they're kind of ignoring them anyways. So they're just basically spelling Singletary. They're not really taking over at the end of the game or giving them dedicated drives to Moss or to Breida. So I think he's a strong play. I think that Daryl Williams is really underrated in a sneaky spot because he's not that cheap. He's 5,800, the same as Sony Michel. He's right priced around a lot of the other likely popular running backs, like an Eli Mitchell if he plays. Maybe Gibson. No, I don't think people are going to play Gibson. Certainly Chase Edmonds if there's no Connor, which by the way, I love Chase Edmonds. So Daryl Williams is not really going to get played, but the matchup's really, really good. Bengals give up the league high target rate to running backs. Teams are just not really thrown against the wide receiver against Cincy, which, who knows? I mean, could that change if it's Tyreek? Well, he might just get his 12 targets, but Daryl's a pass catcher on this offense. He's also the leading rusher inside the 20, the leading rusher inside the 10. He's a leading rusher inside the 5. They like to give it to him down deep all year. Now, likely there's no CEH. I kind of buried the lead, but there's no CEH this week. He's had 2 straight DNPs. Doesn't look like he's going to go. And, since he's a top 10 rush DVOA, right? But they're bottom 10 in the past. But Williams can get you there in multiple ways. Like I mentioned, he can get you there in the pass, right? So if we like KC as a defense, if we know that they're funneling as a defense, since he's funneling targets to the running back at the highest rate, we know Daryl Williams can do that. He's had 100-yard receiving games, this year with tons of yards and tons of catches. I mean, why do you not want that? There's some talk about Gore maybe cutting into it, but I mean, 10 of his 13 carries came when they were up 30-6 last week, KC, so they're not really using Gore again as kind of spelling Williams. No, I mean, when CEH went out last week, it was all Daryl Williams. So I wanted to mention Daryl, and then I think just Chase Edmonds. If there's no Connor, I mean, that's 2 straight DNPs for Connor as well. I mean, you saw what they did with Chase Edmonds last week. It was just bell cow usage. He's super talented, shifty. There's going to be some pressure coming from Dallas, a lot of dump offs probably to Edmonds. So I like Edmonds quite a bit as well.
I have to say, before I get started on anyone that I even am considering this week, it's like a Christmas miracle. We're heading into 2022 in the right way. We have Devin Singletary on the podcast, not mentioned by me. It's a beautiful thing. It's also great that Buffalo has finally recognized who their bell cow is. We don't need to continue these weird splits with someone like Zach Moss. Nothing against Zach Moss, talented player in his own right. It's just Devin Singletary is the man, and it's nice that they're finally gearing up for a playoff run, giving him the snaps that he deserves. With that being said, another kid that I've liked for years has always flashed, has also always just been injured. Rashad Penny finally getting a massive role for Seattle. They get the plus matchup against Detroit. There should be plenty of opportunity for Pete Carroll to completely abandon any type of pass game and hand off to Rashad Penny as many times as he can. We know that he wants to do that. And now imagine Seattle with any type of lead. They're just going to give Penny as much as he can handle. And while I do acknowledge, there are concerns with Penny in terms of like season-long fantasy and stuff, he's the type of DFS player that we want because, one, people are afraid to use him because he is injury prone. And two, that doesn't matter in DFS. Like the chances that he gets hurt on any specific week, I mean, you're playing around with anyone in that situation that would get hurt like that. Maybe Penny's is a little bit higher than someone else, but you're not really going to project that type of thing. So I believe he's up to 6,100, which is relatively high. That's actually, a bit more than I would have anticipated, especially with a guy like Devin Singletary in a pretty similar role in a better offense, being so much cheaper. But I do think that Penny's in play. And then one more guy that I did want to mention here, and it feels weird because he just seems way too cheap. The only question that I have, and I don't know if either of you have seen anything on this, is just trying to project his role. DeAndre Swift is coming back this week. He's practiced in full, had no limitations. If he's returning to his major role, I mean, he gets a good matchup against Seattle. He's only 6,000. Would he not be one of the top backs on the slate, right? But I mean, does he just immediately return to that massive workhorse role where they're giving him a ton of touches, or do you think they're going to ease him back in, use Jamal Williams, maybe even use Reynolds or something? Would be interested in either one of your guys' thoughts on Swift this week.
I guess I have to answer since I'm the Detroit guy, right? But I hate the Lions. It's not that I gave up on them. No, I hate them. So whatever. I'm not going to go on that whole thing. But anyway, yeah, man. You like our whole staff is like running back guys, man. I'm not going to get into it, but so they love running backs, love throwing to running back. They're not going to ignore Reynolds. They're not going to ignore Williams. They're going to mix in Swift against probably better judgment. I mean, I don't know why they're doing that. I mean, it's just stupid. But, yeah, look, the matchup's good. Swift is very good. The offense isn't great. They just lost Khalif Raymond to the COVID list today, which means he can't play. Reynolds is iffy. So of course we got the God, Amon-Ra St. Brown still in this offense. We don't know if Goff is going to play. Obviously, it's just a terrible offense. With a very talented running back in a good matchup, but now there's absolutely going to be touches to go. He's not going to be Belk out. There's no way they're not going to be giving Reynolds touches and Jamal Williams touches in this game. And we could get into a nasty thing where both teams just want to be idiots and run the ball all game, which I don't mind the Rashad Penny call. I kind of like that quite a bit. I mean, he just looks really good. Like, dude, watch some clips of him in the last few weeks. He's like really, really good. So he could tear this defense up, but I'm staying away from Swift personally.
Ben?
Yeah, I'll pass on Swift. But before we move on here, I do want to say every running back we've just talked about is like 6,500 or below. So I think Jonathan Taylor is going to end up really low owned, which I like. Maybe not really low owned, but I think he's going to be definitely he's not going to be one of the highest owned running backs. I think people are going to settle more on that mid tier. Although I guess it depends if people are playing Lance. They're saving so much.
I think if people go Lance, it's so easy to play Taylor. But to be fair, you could play Lance and then you could pay up for Cooper Kupp and you could pay up for Travis Kelce, and all of a sudden you can't fit Taylor anymore.
We'll see. We'll see when it gets to the weekend. But I mean, I agree with Matt. I think if Connor's out, I'd be really interested in Edmonds for sure. I do think Daryl Williams is interesting. I don't think we're high enough on Rojo. I mean, I know
of course,
Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know Vaughn came in last week, but I mean, the Jets literally give up the most fantasy points to running backs for the season. It's not even close. It's 70 more than the Chargers. So it's a really good spot with a high team total, huge favorite. Definitely in play. And then the last thing I want to mention about Sony, I agree with Matt. It's a bad, on paper, bad matchup. If he gets chalky, I would be less interested. But I mean, his red zone role is something that we have to talk about. I mean, he's essentially had 7 games where he's had double-digit carries. So he because Henderson's been there and he hasn't been super involved, but 18 carries inside the 10 is more than Zeke Elliott, more than Najee Harris. on the season, and that's with Daryl Henderson taking 13 attempts himself inside the 10, and you're now taking him out of the picture. So, like, his role in the red zone is so good. I do think like that kind of bakes into like the tough matchup as well.
You're right, man. Like I said, there's so many good things in this, and probably I'm paying too much attention to the matchup, right? Maybe it's
Matchup is definitely like if you're comparing him to like Williams or Ronald Jones or Montgomery, like for sure the matchup is way worse. I agree with that, but I guess it's probably just going to come down to ownership, like projected ownership. I think this weekend.
People are playing Sony, dude. People are absolutely. I mean, I think he's
100%, 100%. But I mean, if he's like going to be higher than Montgomery, like that would definitely make me.
Do you guys think that's going to happen? If you ask me, I think Montgomery comes in higher. I don't see how someone takes Sony Michel and clicks that button before David Montgomery.
I think Montgomery will be higher owned. I think Rojo is a conversation. I think it's close between those two. I have no idea which way people will go. It's going to be probably whoever projects better on whatever like the main projections that people use. I have no idea.
Are we gonna we got to do a Singletary versus Sony bet, dude?
Yeah, I like the spot for Singletary too, for sure. I 100% agree, but he would be farther down. Like I can't put him above Sony or Daryl Williams.
Matt's trying to cash in on the cash cow.
Yeah.
I think I've lost every Singletary bet I've ever made, so I don't know if I can. Maybe I should just play him.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I do want to be on the Singletary.
There's so many good mid-tier running backs; it's crazy.
Yeah, it's loaded this week, dude, and you're probably right. That leaves the massive upside of JT totally in play. Again, I don't love the situation, but I mean, like obviously he's got the best big playability. No one's going to be surprised if he goes 140-2, 140-3. I mean, no one's shocked. So yeah, I mean, that's in play.
Yeah, I think all of them are very viable. I think it's important, like that you can really just know how crazy the depth is at running back this week. And to be fair, like we have 14 games. Obviously, there's more depth than a 10-game slate. Like you have 8 more teams playing, but I don't know. Running back just seems open, and it is great in my opinion when you have guys like David Montgomery, who very clearly, in my opinion at least, he's going to get the ownership. And if that's going to continue to happen, like guys like Singletary are just going to go under owned, and those are the type of plays that you need to make in tournaments. But we can shift that to GPPs, or not GPPs, wide receiver. I don't know what I was thinking there. I mean, I feel like at this point, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically locking in Cooper Kupp and Antonio Brown into your lineups, right? And those are like the two chalky options at receiver. Or do you guys think that Cooper Kupp goes overlooked because he's just too pricey at this point?
No, I don't think he'll go overlooked, but yeah, I mean, I think like AB will be higher owned for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not locking in Cooper. I mean, I'm a huge Cooper Kupp fan before it was cool, but yeah, no, I'm not just locking him in like I have in weeks past this year. This week I have just some builds that I'm floating to that. Yeah, I'm not lying, which is like, wow, he's probably getting one of the best matchups he'll get all year. But I'm not just locking him in. I just have some other ideas I'm working with, and we'll see. I mean, I'm probably going to have to build a hedge lineup, maybe even go Stafford and Kupp and someone else just to really, if I'm really wrong. But yeah, man, I don't know. I right now I have like no Cooper Kupp, which is just like sounds like blasphemy.
Against that Baltimore defense, that seems.
I know, and I just printed last week, beating that defense up, with Burrow, but we'll see. I got to dig a little bit deeper and see. And look, there might be more value that opens up. There's not a lot of low-priced wide receiver value. Last week we had the Palmer, value. We had a few different spots. I was like, man, it was all over the place. This week, like literally, if you want to plug your nose and look at a Braxton Berrios, maybe that, but there's not much, man. And with COVID recently, there's always been a couple guys in the 3K range, but so far, not really. So from a perspective of wide receivers and kind of who I'm looking at, yeah, I mean, you don't have to say much about Antonio Brown. I mean, there's just no skill in the Jets secondary. They're giving the highest completion percentage, all the best metrics. on a per play basis because they don't give up much volume because everyone just runs the ball down their throats. But if he's still the only game in town for Tom Brady, and those guys just have a connection, man. Like he lived in his house for years, and it's like they just, I don't know, man. And his first game back off a pretty long break and injury and everything else, and he just gets peppered with 14 targets, just unbelievable. Looked so good. And now this is a way easier matchup, and the Jets versus dealing with Stephon Gilmore and the Panthers last week. So I love AB. I mean, he is a plug and play. He will be in every lineup that I play. I mean, there won't be a lineup that I play that doesn't have AB. That's insanely mispriced. Look at FanDuel. He's like some crazy 8,500, 8,200, and he's just 6,100 here, which I'd have to count, what number that is. That's like wide receiver 20 or something. I mean, it's criminal. So he'll be in every lineup, which is not a hot take. I'm really, really high on CeeDee Lamb this week. I know I'm kind of a CeeDee Lamb stan. I know that he's won me a lot of money this year. But if you look at the matchup for Arizona, they're giving up. I already mentioned some of the passing matches as far as why I like Dak. And again, all the trends for Arizona, it's getting really, really bad. But they've allowed a league high 15 touchdowns to the slot wide receiver. And CeeDee has the second most slot targets in the league over the last 4 weeks. He's got more slot targets even than Cooper Kupp over the last 4 weeks. Now that all three are healthy, him, Gallup, and Amari, he's just unstoppable in the slot. Didn't have to pass too much last week. I know he didn't do too much. We had Amari kind of doing the squeaky wheel thing, asking for more touches, more targets, and they gave it to him. And they just didn't have to pass too much. They blew out the Washington. So, yeah, CeeDee had a quiet game. He's had a few quiet games in a row. He's incredibly talented, though. He's going to get the slot looks. And again, Arizona has led up, they've allowed the most passing touchdowns in general to wide receivers, and also the most to slot wide receivers. But they're actually top 10 in defending the outside receivers, while they're 31st in DK points allowed to slot receivers. So yeah, I'm reading in on that a lot, but it's kind of like giving me a reason to play my guy. But I think it all kind of checks out. And now Dak's going to have even more time in the pocket with Tyron Smith coming back. So I just love going Dak to CeeDee, even playing CeeDee in a one-off if I decide to play Lance. Someone that I haven't played much all year, I'm really high on Waddle this week. I'm not sure if he's going to get much ownership. I think probably he'll get some, not much. But Jalen Waddle's just a print factor. I mean, this guy, another slot receiver. Tennessee has given up the most yards, the most receptions to wide receivers, and the second most DK points per game to wide receivers. Tennessee is also a pass funnel. I mean, they're the second highest. They're giving up the second highest pass play percentage to opposing offenses. And Waddle is he's just a target machine, dude. I mean, it's unreal. And what we also see with Tennessee is that they're number one in yards per attempt against the tight end. So maybe they can kind of quiet down Gesicki, giving even more volume to Waddle. They're 24th in YPA against wide receivers, right? And there's, like I mentioned, they're especially vulnerable to the slot wide receiver. So this is just kind of everything's lining up. Miami was a total. They're a top 3 pass percentage play offense for most of the season. And then they came into this, they're still top 10, but they came into the stretch of just playing garbage teams. Like literally the last 5 games their last 5 teams they played were the Ian Book Saints, the Zach Wilson Jets, Mike Glennon Giants, the PJ Walker Panthers, and the Joe Flacco Jets. Like that's their last 5, dude. So they haven't had to pass much. They dropped like 8th or 9th in pass percentage. They were 2nd or 3rd before that. So I think, and again, Tennessee is a pass funnel, giving up all the most yards and receptions to receivers. So this is just like an unbelievable smash spot for Waddle, and I don't think many people are on it. But that's going to be the way to beat Tennessee. So those are a couple of my takes that the guys that I'm really, really high on. I mentioned AB, Lamb, Waddle. Those are my most common, I think, that I'm going to be playing this week. Ben, who are you looking at this week?
Yeah, we're much more on the at receiver for sure. Obviously, AB is a great play, like you said. I really like Waddle. I was excited to talk about him. You kind of stole him, so I think that's a really good play, and I think he's going to be super low owned at 6,700. Like that's a weird price point,
dude. That's
and exciting. No one's really on. Like there's been a couple times, like in the last I don't know, 5 weeks or so that Tua's kind of gotten like chalky. And no one's playing like Tua or like the Dolphins in general. 14-game slate, like no one is playing him. So yeah, I think Waddle's a really good play. I'm fine with CD. I like Gallup too. I think you can use either of them. CD definitely is like a really good play. But if you need some savings, like I think Gallup's a really good play at his price. And then right in that same tier, probably not for cash, but for tournaments, down below 5K, Cortland Sutton is 4,500. Weird game, but with Drew Lock back at quarterback, Cortland Sutton is Drew Lock's boy. And they've played together obviously for years since they first got Lock, and I think he has really, really nice ceiling for 4,500, and I think he's going to be like, I don't think anyone's playing Cortland Sutton. So I think for tournaments, that's a really good way to just get, like, if you want to play a pretty chalky lineup, instead of using, like you said, Braxton Berrios, who's probably going to get traction. I mean, he's like the only like sub 4K receiver that you can even make a case for at this point for like cash games. So just scrapping him and finding a way to get up to like Cortland Sutton or even Gallup. I think that's a good way to get a little bit lower ownership on like an otherwise chalky team.
We should mention Diggs, in an awesome spot league. Pass rush, right? I think that's for sure a play. Manny Sanders looks unlikely to play, but Gabriel Davis will be back. Beasley will be back. And spread a little thin there, especially with Dawson Knox. But I think Stephon Diggs is just like obviously, an alpha for 7,900. And by the way, that's like when I first looked at the salaries this week, I saw Cooper at 9,500, and then I saw Diggs at 79. Jesus,
yeah. And that goes in with my Allen interest, man. Like obviously, if I'm gonna play Allen on my main team, like I'll be stacking him with Diggs, like for sure. But yeah, that is way too cheap. Agree.
It is, and that matchup, the weather's not gonna be great, but I don't know. I'm not really on Tyreek this week, which is always scary, and it's not because he flopped last week. Like he had COVID and it was rough. Like I had bad COVID, and it was rough for the next 7 to 10 days. As far as I run almost every day, and my running was just brutal for the first week after COVID. My heart rate was just in way higher zones than it normally is, and I mean that's what they said Tyreek was dealing with. Like he was just like huffing and puffing, which I totally understand, and so. I am not saying I think he's still going to be that way this week. It's actually more matchup driven. Receivers are being targeted at the lowest rate as far as opponents of Cincy. Cincy is just being attacked via the tight ends and the running backs. Again, the lowest rate against wide receivers. So I'm just and I love Kelsey. So I'm just kind of away from Tyreek, which might who knows? Like it could always just kill you. I want to get either one of your guys' opinions on a play that I'm kind of like stuck with. And I played him last week. He didn't do anything. It was in my core and I was pissed. But Tyler Lockett, man, another week, another great matchup. Bottom 3 pass rush in Detroit at home. Maybe one of the last games he gets to play with Russ, especially at home. Russ might be on the move. I think, do we look at Lockett or even DK? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like Lockett personally. I think that he's a really good option. I probably prefer him over DK at this point, especially with all the Russ narrative. It seems like Russ and Lockett are a little bit tighter, but man, the matchup against Detroit specifically for the exact type of player that Lockett is. And don't get me wrong, I also think that there's plenty of upside in someone like DK Metcalf. 100% fine with that as well. I just think that the matchup probably comes in a little bit better for Lockett. I do think that he comes with a ton of upside for his price. Ben, do you feel the same way? Or are you off Lockett?
Yeah, I'm not super on Seattle this week. I think I prefer dropping down. I like Cooks more, and I think you can make the case for Odell Beckham at 5,700 as well. Like I think I prefer those two to the Seattle guys this week personally. That's just me.
Okay. Yeah, we should be looking at Odell, dude. You're right.
Yeah, it's a good play. It's a really good play, I think.
Yep. I was gonna say that there's a few cheaper guys that do make sense. Odell's one of them. Christian Kirk is still just way too cheap.
Agreed.
For the type of role that he has. And then I wanted to get your guys' opinion on one thing, because I can't really figure out this weird Tampa offense. But if Mike Evans is out again, obviously Chris Godwin out, does Brashad Perryman get run? And are we in a situation where, do you guys remember a few years ago when Brashad Perryman won fantasy football championships late in the season with Tampa. Are we in that type of a situation? Not necessarily where he's dropping 35 fantasy points a game and whatnot, but he's like 4,000? Or are they going to go with someone like Tyler Johnson? Because I believe Tyler Johnson didn't really play all that many snaps last week.
Yeah.
Correct?
So I dug pretty deep into this. So they played a lot of 12 personnel last week. That's where you play 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. And so they didn't have many 3 wide receiver sets. That would have been Tyler Johnson in the slot, replacing Godwin in 3 wide receiver sets. Now, again, when they're at full health, they have Godwin, Evans, and AB. So you have to do 11 personnel. You have to run 3 wide. Now with this situation, and they ran a lot of break out of touchdown, and break with Gronk, and they were doing a lot of AB with actually Cyril Grayson, like some guy named Cyril Grayson. So I think you're right with Perriman coming back this week. Yeah, he'll be opposite AB on the outside, no question. Perriman just had like that awesome kind of walk-off touchdown in OT or whatever that was a few weeks back, I think in prime time or something. I could see that. It's probably not a super high volume game from a passing perspective. Again, opponents rush against the Jets at the league highest rate, and it's probably going to be a blowout, I would imagine. But yeah, for his price and to get a piece of that offense, and if you're playing more lineups, I don't mind that at all.
Matt is on Devin Singletary, has agreed to
Easy. Slow down now. I'm not. Yeah, no. Actually, no. I'm not a Perriman guy this week. You gotta settle down.
We moved him off Singletary in one podcast.
Dude, I'm the hot chick at the bar, and you're like, yeah. Now I'm gonna marry you. Whoa, slow down. Easy, dude. I'm just saying, like, you're running a lot of lineups. You can do worse than Perriman, I guess, but I'm not like calling it a play. All right, so just relax. Okay.
Oh man, I also want to point out that you at one point also said Braxton Berrios.
Oh, this is horrible. This podcast is going horribly. Yeah, you're right. Berrios, you're right.
To be fair, Braxton Berrios is going to be like chalky, I think.
Yeah, so there's just no cheap receivers really. When you look at it, there's the last few weeks there's been some very, very good salary relief options at receiver. This week, you're really kind of playing bottom of the barrel guys if you want to go down
Moore
there.
Suits up though, dude. I like Elijah Moore if he actually plays, and it looks like it's possible at least. I would look at him. Obviously, definitely not as cheap as his Bears. He's 5,200, but yeah, I think Crowder's already. He's been declared out. Or just said he has a couple DMPs. Yeah, he said 2 straight DMPs already this week for Crowder. So ugh. And didn't Tampa just lose 2 of their top corners to COVID like today? I want to say. I'd have to pull up the list. I have this crazy NFL league-wide COVID listing. It's the biggest disaster of a website ever. There's just like thousands of players on the COVID list, man. Like it's so depressing. But I'm pretty sure they just lost 2 of their top 3 corners to COVID. And if anyone enters a list, basically the way it's going to work this week, if anyone entered the list Wednesday or later, they're not eligible to play Sunday with the 5-day rule. They had to have been entered on Monday or Tuesday at the latest. By the way, we should mention, that kind of affects the Colts game. Like, Carson Wentz, I think he got put on Tuesday the 28th. I think they could activate him like Sunday morning, right?
There's like a slight chance he can come back.
That's what I heard.
Which is just unbelievable. But yeah.
I know. I know. But maybe they'll make it like, whatever. I'm not gonna go on to that. But yeah, I don't know if they'll actually let him play. But anyways, I think that's probably it for. What about you, Bales? You got any other hot takes that are not Brashad Perriman at wide receiver?
Honestly, my hot take was Jalen Waddle. So
you guys have already good. You get the triple. Yeah,
we found our.
I guess I don't think we discussed him, but on the opposite side of Waddle, I do really like AJ Brown too. I kind of talked about Tennessee with Tannehill. AJ Brown, he had 16 targets last week or something, and he's just the type of player that if he's getting that type of volume, so much upside available there. So, I think that AJ Brown's good in that situation too. But no, I think we handled wide receiver pretty well. We can move over to tight end. Ben, you got to start at tight end. Who are you looking at here?
I'm excited you started with me. My conviction play of the week is at tight end. So this is good. And he's just cheap too. He's cheap. This is good. To get it out of the way, both Andrews and Kelsey are great plays. 100%. I think you can use them in tournaments. Could get there in cash. I think you could get to Kelsey if you wanted to. If I was going to play one in cash, it would probably be Kelsey. But I think both are really good plays for sure.
Can I guess before you say it?
Yeah, go see if you can get it.
Foster Moreau or Mo Alley Cox?
No, okay.
Damn it.
This
Is
is
it
good.
cheaper than
I
that?
don't think. I don't know. No, he's not
Okay.
cheaper. He's not cheaper.
Well, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I don't think he's going to be high owned. And this fits with Matt saying he doesn't have a lot of cup. Tyler Higby, 4K.
Okay.
Baltimore's given up the third most catches this season to tight ends, fifth most DraftKings points. And if you look, Tyler Higby, top 20 in the NFL in targets inside the 20. So he has a good red zone role. I've talked a lot about the Rams on this this podcast, but I think Tyler Higby, especially if you're not playing Cup, is such a good play at 4K on DraftKings. Obviously has the red zone role, plays a ton of snaps, and I don't know why he's 4K. Like, why is he not like 5? I think he should be like 5K probably.
Well, he hasn't scored many fantasy points, right? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, he was out for like a couple weeks. It's probably because he missed games, right? Because he missed like 2-3.
Yep.
But he came back last week and caught 5 of 6 targets. And for a while there, like early on in the season, like this is like, I mean, he was like really chalky. I think at least like 2 weeks in a row early in the season. But I think 4K, he's like an easy play for me this week.
Interesting. Wow. So I was looking at Foster Moreau in the similar price range, a little bit cheaper actually. Who's the last 2 weeks he's played 100%, 94% of snaps. Week before that, 98%. So he's got the same Higby, play every down type of role. More fantasy points than Higby the last 2 weeks. Indy is a top, top 3 matchup, for tight ends. I mean,
they've given up their second most. So Ravens have given up the third most catches to tight ends. Colts have given up the second most.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, the matchups there for sure. They're losing some weapons. I think Brian. Well, no, I don't know if they lost anyone to COVID or not recently. It got so hard to freaking keep up. I mean, obviously teams pass a ton against Indy as well, and Indy gives up the league highest touchdown rate via the pass, right? So if you're going to score on Indy, it's through the air, which not that I think that Moreau's like this touchdown machine, but that is how you score against Indy. He plays all the snaps. He had like 6 or 7 catches last week. It's a good tight end matchup. They play a lot of zone, leave through the middle, middle of the field wide open. So I like Moreau. If my build dictates that, I love Kelsey. All the metrics I mentioned earlier kind of go into play with Kelsey. And by the way, just in general, since he's forcing the third most amount of passes, pass attempts against them per game, so if again, third highest, and then it's the Chiefs in town, and then just a kind of a shitty transitive property. But if the third string quarterback, some journeyman named Josh Johnson, put up 8, 125 and 1 line with Mandrews last week, right? So Mark Andrews goes 8, 125 and 1. What's Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey going to do, against this offense, which funnels to the tight end, which just gives it up left and right for years now to the tight end on the road, important game. I think that Kelsey is just like in a total nut spot. He's had a little bit more time to kind of come back, from COVID. He didn't play last week, whereas Tyreek kind of pressed it and did play. I just love the matchup for Kelsey. And then I kind of threw it out there, my guess. It's just so gross, dude. But like Mo Alley Cox is kind of like filling in a lot of my lineups that I'm going for particular builds, like a few spots I really want to grab. Wentz might come back. If he doesn't, it's a backup quarterback, whatever. Say what you want. It's kind of a shitty take about like backup quarterbacks like the tight ends, but it's there. There might be some pressure, a decent pressure unit in Vegas. So I think Mo Alley Cox, the problem's always been that he's a super athletic guy. He's flashed, but there's always people in his way, and it does not look like Jack Doyle is going to play this week. He's had 2 straight DNPs. It's not looking good. I think he exited from the last game too. Yeah, he did. Yeah, with an injury. So it's not looking good. And I think Mo Alley Cox at 2,800. In a decent spot. I mean, the Raiders are another great tight end matchup. So I think that if the build dictates towards basically a total punt. I don't know. Am I crazy for mentioning Mo Alley Cox?
I kind of
think
like
you're crazy.
For me, I think it's the same price. I still feel like I'm more on the Brevin Jordan train. He's just
if Doyle's out, I'm in.
Yeah, if Doyle's out, I think for sure I'd probably bump that to Mo Alley Cox. I don't know. Brevin Jordan's still just like playing relatively well. He's efficient. And it's not like he's going to get 10 targets at any point in time, but, he does get a few, and you're really just looking for that kind of, or him to fall in the end zone, when you punt tight end. So I don't know. I would probably need to look a little bit more between those two. I think that they're the same price anyway. So, you have till Sunday to figure it out. But no, I think both are fine punts.
Okay. I think Doyle's going to be out. I'm fairly confident in that. San Francisco is one of the worst matchups for tight ends in the league. I'm not sure that I want to look at Brevin Jordan, but I might just commit to Mo Alley Cox. I don't even hate playing Mo Alley Cox with the Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey's not a tight end. It's just like a mental block people have. He's just a receiver, a great one.
Yeah.
So I might even run that. We'll see.
Can we quick discuss Tyler Higby having 3 more red zone targets than Travis Kelce? I mean,
dude, isn't that wild?
What is going on here?
No. Kelsey's not getting many red zone looks at all this year. It's really, really weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
That's wild.
It's because every time they get, dude, it's the number one thing that annoys me with the Chiefs, dude. They get down there like inside the 5 and they start running them freaking trick plays.
Yep.
Like, every time. It's like you guys, they're like so good. Like they're like bored. Yeah. Like they just get closer. Like, yeah, you know what? Let's let this lineman line up at quarterback. We'll do something weird. It's so annoying.
It's just hilarious, dude. Yeah. Exactly.
It's great.
As far as other just kind of real quick, Mark Andrews should be mentioned, especially with Huntley coming back. Regardless of matchup, they run the offense through them. He probably is going to see some Jalen Ramsey in the middle of the field, probably. So I don't know if I'd probably just pay the dollars for Kelce. Kittle with a backup in, not sure. We'll see. Gronk should probably be mentioned, in that matchup. Gronk was quiet last week, even though they're playing a lot of 2 tight end sets. Break at the tutty, but probably Gronk is like a sleeping giant. I mean, who knows? It's going to happen eventually. The only other play that I actually am quite interested in is Zach Ertz. He's just become like the floor safe option in the passing game since D-Hop went out. For Kyler Murray. So, which by the way, Kyler, Dallas kid. I mean, literally born and raised in Dallas, coming home, to play. And I think that with the pressure that Dallas can put on. I think that Zach Ertz is going to continue to be looked at like he has been. I mean, what do you have? 11 targets last week. He's a little bit pricey, but man, oh man, if you're going to be running some Dak lines with some CD and whatever else, I mean, man, you could do worse than.
Wait, where are those pictures? Aren't there pictures of Kyler wearing cowboy stuff? How did it take us an hour to get onto that? I mean, this is like the ultimate. This is like the ultimate narrative, dude.
It is, yeah. And who has better upside with their legs in the league right now?
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about this. This is like when Lamar goes home down South Florida. He wants to go off, dude.
Oh, for sure, dude. He gets to play in the dome as well. Yeah, here's the last 2 weeks for Zach Ertz: 13 and 11 targets. Like
it's crazy that we're at the point where Zach Ertz is getting that though. It's it hurts my heart.
I might just go full narrative, and I'm gonna make a Kyler team literally just because of that. Don't care about anything else.
Nothing else. Just going home.
That's my analysis right there. I love the homecoming game for a good player. I don't care if I don't care where Amon-Ra St. Brown's from, dude. But now Kyler, I'm interested.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. Tight end seems weird for me because I don't know. Personally, I just kind of want to go to the top. I want to play Travis Kelce or I want to play Mark Andrews. You have Kelce in a great matchup where he probably does whatever he wants. You have Mark Andrews. Someone tweeted, I believe I read it earlier today, that Andrews is 250 yards away from breaking the single season tight end receiving yards record. That's doable in 2 games. That's not out of the question whatsoever. They could just continue to feed him. He's already looking elite. And regardless of necessarily Lamar Jackson playing this week, if Jackson's playing, He essentially has to be a pocket passer. All the beat reporters at Baltimore's practices this week have said that Lamar Jackson is limping every time he does anything on the field. If that's the case, he's not one. I doubt he plays, but if he gets in, he's not running around and running for 100 yards. He's just going to stay in the pocket, and he's probably going to throw to Mark Andrews relatively quickly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it just came down to I just love Kelsey so much more here. And you can get him for $100 less. So I'm just, you got to make your stand somewhere. Maybe if I get a little silly and end up building some Stafford lineups, that's the obvious bring back, but we'll see.
That does it for the position by position. We can quickly break down some stacks for you guys. Matt, we'll start with you. Favorite stacks? I mean, we kind of discuss this as we go through, but just quickly,
sure. I mean,
top stacks.
Oddly enough, with the way this week is shaping out, if Trey Lance plays, I'll probably be running no stacks in my main lineups. Because you just kind of pick Trey Lance and find some kind of mini correlation stacks against each other, like playing a CeeDee Lamb with an Edmonds or an Ertz or whatever. So you can do things like that, little correlation stacks if you're not going to be stacking your quarterback. But a traditional quarterback stack, I think I mentioned, I like Dak to CeeDee this week for a lot of the reasons that we talked about. On the way over here in my car, I kept thinking I love Kelsey so much. If I love the game I do like the game, Casey and Cincy quite a bit since he's forced up the third most passes. Why am I not looking at a Mahomes stack with Kelsey and then just again, if I don't play, Tyreek, well, if he gets production through him, well, I'm grabbing it through Mahomes. So that's kind of at the back of my mind, asking myself, why are you not doing a Mahomes to Kelsey stack? I think I might get to that. We'll see. But yeah, for the most part, it might be some naked Trey and then some Dak stacks along with maybe looking at one more, right? I think we talked about Stafford, maybe talked about Mahomes, maybe, but I'm only really keying in on Dak right now, at least.
Yeah. How do you feel about if you're going with Mahomes Kelsey stack? How do you feel about also throwing Daryl Williams in there?
Yeah. Oh, totally, dude. Yeah. Actually, well, that is what crossed my mind too, because I knew I liked Daryl Williams, and we know he can get there, through the air as well. So you can grab a ton of the touchdown equity right there. Yeah, it's a great point. I love that actually. Yep.
Ben?
Yeah. I think, for my main lineup, it's going to come down to probably Trey Lance versus Josh Allen, barring the weather being super crazy. But I don't know. I'm never someone that cares that much about, the weather. Even if it's snowing, as long as it's not a blizzard or something, I think I would be fine with it. So that'll come down to it. Stafford, who I talked about, I like as well. And then, I guess it comes down to that Dallas game, Dak or Kyler. We kind of talked about Kyler at the end there. I'm interested. Matt obviously sold me on Kyler or on Dak as well. So I like that game outside of Stafford and Josh Allen.
Yeah, there's a few really solid ones. If you're going more the large field GPP or multiple lineups, I do think that you can go with some odd ones like Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, and then also bring it back with Jalen Waddle. Weird that my least favorite of the three is actually the quarterback, but I mean, kind of have to do it that way somehow. I also think that if you need to save some salary, an interesting one, assuming he starts, would be Tyler Huntley with Mark Andrews. And then obviously you can bring that back with Cooper Kupp if you want. And that's a way to get him into your lineup, but also correlate with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then it's not going to necessarily be impossible because you're not spending up on a quarterback. You still have Huntley, who's relatively cheap at this point. But yeah, you guys outlined a bunch of good ones. I feel like that's a lot of information. Before we head out, everyone's favorite segment that we do. We're on the bold calls. Matt, I know you're never ready for this, so we'll start with Ben. Get us a bold call today.
Yeah, bold call for me is going to be... I'm going to have to go. Well, you know what? I was going to do Tyler Higby, but since we've gotten to this point, Jonathan Taylor, 200 rushing yards this weekend. Let's do it.
200. Oh, man. I thought you were immediately going to go Kyler Murray.
Yeah, well, it was fresh in my brain. You are right. It was fresh, but no.
Matt, or what do you got for a bold call, I guess?
This is very bold. And I thought about this because they have similar roles in their offense, really good matchups. And don't take it the wrong way, boys. I love Cooper Kupp more than most people. I really do. But my bold call is that Jalen Waddle outscores Cooper Kupp in DK points this week.
That's a hot take. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Rashad Penny goes for over 125 and a touchdown. I'm not going to hit the 200 mark like Ben. Yeah, Taylor's just more talented. That's the big problem here. But that's all that we got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Again, comment any questions that you have. We will be in throughout the week to answer them. You can find all of our content at dfskarma.com. Free content along with our premium stuff. That's where you'll find it. Good luck this week. We have one more essentially actual slate in week 18, and we will be back next week.